this is like a laboratory on life, on people. Lead to Win exists to help leaders, pastors, business leaders, parents, younger people coming up to really win in the areas of life that matter most. The worst thing in life is not having less points than you would like to have. It's actually having a lot of points and realize you're playing the wrong game.
Well, I want to welcome you to the Lead to Win podcast, where we're helping you lead in the areas of life that matter most. It's a big day for us. Season 1, Episode 1. Here we are jumping off. And I thought, Pastor Jeff, we just start with the explanation. What is this? Why are we having a podcast? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to help people win? Where are we trying to help them win? And why is this important?
Well, you and I have been friends for 25 years, so
Yes.
There's been multiple discussions about church, leadership, sports, and a whole wide array of topics.
Correct.
To which you are a person who contains a wealth of information, a pretty good trivia partner probably,
Yes.
because you have like the most random bit of useless information along with
Appreciate
some
that.
good information.
Thank you.
But I think you several years ago actually started telling me, that this is really a learning platform.
Right.
It's a place to get exposed to some things that you wouldn't ordinarily have the opportunity to be exposed to. So we began to kind of start thinking about like how to provide a pull back the curtain. So we work on books. We
Yes.
work on, I preach, I think probably in the last 2 weeks I've done, live communication.
Right.
It was a little bit of a rare stretch, probably 10 or 12 times, including weekends
Right.
and stuff, right? So this provides a platform where, whether it's members of our church family, leaders, pastors, people in the business community. I spoke at my first large business event.
Convention,
this convention deal.
Leaders
And that
convention,
was such a learning opportunity.
Right.
So I love to invite them into the discussion. But I do believe that I like this format because it's a little bit more raw and real, and we do a lot of different things on a given weekly basis. But one of the number one things we do is this is like a laboratory.
Correct.
On life,
Yes.
on people. So Lead to Win exists to help leaders, pastors, business leaders, parents, younger people coming up to really win in the areas of life that matter most. Single greatest thing that impacts the culture, which we know Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right.
I hope in these formats that we get some nuggets, some pragmatic tools, how do I put this, bolt in this
Right.
hole to fit this, widget. I think that stuff is helpful, and
Yes.
you know me, I like it all.
Yeah.
I got everything. I like
true.
it all, and I hope that happens. But I do think also though, this can be a place of inspiration and motivation to really, because really at the end of the day we do what we want to do. So it's about changing our perspectives maybe on certain things we're prioritizing, and so I hope also I get a chance to interact with so many amazing leaders.
Right.
We're
We're going to have some great guests on the
great
podcast.
guests
Yeah.
that come, like John Maxwell. I did a live interview in a leadership setting for the podcast with
Right.
him, and I really enjoy that format because I'm pulling out of them things
Correct.
that have been impactful for me. So I'm doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Like if this about me. Like if I get a chance to interact with someone, I'm gonna be curious and listening and learning and asking questions.
Right.
And what about that? And so I love doing that in the podcast format because I'm just doing what I would normally do.
You're just inviting people into it. And it's one of
Yeah.
my favorite things about you. You always love to say, you don't want to just what a great successful person has, you want how they think. And so you're
Right.
talking about these questions, you're curious, you're a learner, you're a processor of information. This podcast is not just a couple people spouting off theories. We were just upstairs planning weekend services,
Yeah.
planning a whole series of events and
Yeah.
different things that we have from a leadership perspective. So we're trying to bring people
Right.
into this world and help them learn as we're learning, and together we think that's really valuable. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this idea, lead to win.
Right.
Leadership's an important part,
Right.
but winning is an important part, and I think sometimes people struggle Well, winning, are you saying like you're better than somebody else, or is winning in the Bible? Help us understand why the organization is called Lead to Win. Why did we build a podcast around that idea? Because it's so important to who God's made you and just the whole culture of how we do things.
Well, let's be honest. Winning is way more fun.
Yes, it's better than losing. Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
everybody wants to win. And everyone wants to be around winners.
Right.
And it's proven that anyone listening that has a team, a home, a family, a culture, an environment, that winners gravitate to certain environments and they change the environments that they're in. And so years ago, I remember I am at my core. I'm a coach. I'm a dad. I'm a pastor. A pastor is all about helping the sheep win, helping them be healthy, right? So my greatest fulfillment is helping others win. And so, in fact, I would remove myself from even having to be that important because my biggest joy is just inspiring others to do well.
Yeah.
So it's never been about my profile or my brand or any of that. And so we were writing a profile years ago, and again I had kind of minimized it, but they were like, no, people need to know who the leader is,
right?
And so we were working on it, and they were like, well, just tell us what you really care about. And I said, well, I just want to see people win in life.
It's great.
So I have a book called The Way to Win,
Right.
which was my doctoral dissertation, where I unpack a development journey. Because everyone needs a coach, which is one of the principles, but then what does that coach do? It helps us through a series of steps that bring us to an ultimate better place, really is what a coach does.
Yeah.
Creates an iterative process of practice that then helps you to win. But as I was involved in the empirical study of that and all the components of that, I really realized that what I'm really saying is, I want you to win at what matters most.
That's good.
Because winning is all in the eyes of what your scoreboard is. It's in the perspective. We all have scoreboards today.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to close their rings. You're challenging, one of our guys on the bike and all these things. Everyone has their bank accounts on their phone.
They do.
So you're looking all
There's
the
a
time
scoreboard,
at that. How many followers you have on social media.
Yep.
That's a scoreboard for
especially
people.
for young people.
For
It's a
young
big
people,
deal.
that's why they're everyone has a scoreboard. You go to the doctor when you get our age, and the annual physical. We were in the car the other day. My doctor called me. How are you doing with this? How are you doing with that? It's like, oh gosh, I'm not really appreciating the accountability.
No.
So it's like we all have a scoreboard. And different seasons of life, you may have different ones. But the worst thing, this is the theme that I want everybody to get.
Good.
That's my goal for this podcast. The worst thing in life is not having less points than you would like to have. It's actually having a lot of points and realize you're playing the wrong game.
Right. It's true.
You were actually focused on something that isn't the ultimate reward or winning. I think it's important too, as far as, I'm a pastor. And that's my primary lens. I'm a dad. I'm a coach. I love those things. But I am a pastor. That's what I've done for 30 years. I started at 21 years old, and so as a pastor who's working with people and developing and equipping people, I think that people may ask in the church space, is it okay to win? So I think sometimes as a pastor, right? So as a coach or as a dad or in personal things, it's like, oh, well, because if I'm playing checkers, I'm playing to win. But I think sometimes in the pastor thing, is it okay to win, or should I even encourage them to win? 1 Corinthians 9:24, I love it because it says, the Apostle Paul says, there's all these runners that are running this race, but only one gets the prize. And the statement there in the NIV is run in such a way to get the prize. But in the New American Standard, which is my personal study Bible, says run to win.
Yes.
Now, let's make sure we get the context here. But it illustrates my point. Paul's talking about eternity.
Right.
What he's really speaking about is this is a temporary world, but there's an eternal world. There's an eternal kingdom that we're investing in. So he's speaking about things like people's souls, right? What does it profit? So business people would say winning is finishing the
profits,
year
yeah.
with a high profit,
It's true.
a good return on investment. Well, the Bible says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his
Right.
soul?
It's a
That's
big
a
deal.
scoreboard verse.
That is a big scoreboard.
That's a scoreboard. We saw Jesus with the rich young ruler. Does the Bible say it's a sin to be rich? No. It actually talks about being generous and sharing, and everything we have is from God. What it does say is it can be more difficult
right.
if it's your scoreboard.
Right.
Right? And so this is an area of, I have phrases like, I want to make you rich where you're poor.
It's good.
Like I want to help you like work through what does it mean to have a growing organization, but your team not hate you.
Wow. That's
Like-
often the case.
Like what if everybody finishes the finish line? What if everybody's winning? What if the whole environment that you lead, their marriages are better, their lives are better? Like what is that possible? I hate to use the phrase because it's really used in a bad way, but what if you could have it all?
Right.
What I mean have it all, can't have it all at one time. But if you really see things through a biblical lens, you don't have to see winning as, well, I got more people in my church, but I hate my church.
Right.
Or I got more in the area of church, but my wife is not happy with me, or my kids, or like how do you win? And that's back to culture.
It really is.
Like I'm not saying that I'm not growing in this, because I'm always learning about it. In fact, you're going to hear my conversations through this. But I think one of my strengths is culture building.
It's true.
Like building an environment that has some laughter, that has some focus, that has some correction, that has some, it's okay to be transparent and just go, I'm having a bad day. But overall, the goal is like everybody striving toward the same goal. So I tell people at our membership class, so I should tell them, I guess
Right.
this is our membership class of our podcast.
Yes.
I'm really not good at much. Like I'm really not. Like my high school, when I went back for my big class reunion, they're like, Jeff, how do you lead that big church? Because you don't know how to do anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's always been my motto in life. If you know how to do stuff, people ask you to do stuff.
They do.
So but here's what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
What I'm really good at is getting high capacity people to work together for a common cause. And now I'm at a point in my life. So I didn't just like, oh, what's our brand? Like even the podcast, right?
Sure.
Years ago, I want to help people win in life.
Right.
The way to win. I have a book called Win with People that we're going to unpack on this that could help you become a better shepherd and a team
pastor,
builder and
yeah.
a
It's
pastor,
good.
right? And so, but why that, well, I tell people when they come to our church, again, I don't know how to do a lot, but where I'm at in my life now is I have this history with a group of people, most of my team, a long period of time,
Right.
25, 30 years of building together and seeing, again, sometimes more success than others, but every day waking up and saying, we're going to move the ball forward.
That's really good. And I want to say, just to clarify, you hear him say, that's true, but you are being a little bit aw shucks, because I always tell people your treadmill runs at 14. Like normal treadmill stops at 10, your treadmill runs at 14, because you're committed to this. You love this. You're like, I can't believe we get to do this. But again, to me, this comes back to the ethos, the culture of winning.
Yeah.
The greatest winners I've ever been around don't have to tell you what great winners they are. I got a privilege to sit with John Wooden before he passed.
Yeah.
He didn't tell us about his championships. He didn't have to show us anything. He was asking us about us. See, to me, like winning, when we talk about winning, somebody else doesn't have to lose for you to win.
Exactly.
That's the biblical concept. It's a stewardship.
We live in a world today where we can kind of prop up this illusion of winning too. Here in Texas, we call it all hat, no cattle.
That's true.
So I am at the point in my life where
Right.
I have the fruit of relationships. I'm not talking about just the number of people in our church or the number of people that follow me, but I have this history that takes a while to build,
It
right?
does. It
and
takes
so,
time.
so it's also me trying to inspire someone that it's not too late to build the right way, right? And so that ethos of winning, I think, is something people are intrigued by.
Right.
And it's also, I think we're going to continue to unpack, what is it really? Because I know a lot of people that get to certain metrics and they're like, is that it?
Right.
You know?
I think some of that too is what kind of a team member are you? Because
Right.
if you're concerned with yourself primarily, everybody's been on a team with a player like this. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not even that good, but they perceive everything through themselves. Am I getting the credit? Who sees me?
Right.
And I think the greatest winners are all about trying to add value. And this is certainly you. You're trying to always add value to others and to say, if the rest of my team is winning, I'm not going to have to worry about my scoreboards nearly as much.
Yeah. No, if you have to tell somebody how great you are, you're
Yeah.
probably not that great.
It's true. But we live in a world that's been
That's right.
taught.
Been taught.
Tell everybody, celebrate you, build
Yep.
your brand,
Yep.
tell them how
Yep.
great you are, puff it up. It's almost not, doesn't even matter if you're that good,
Yeah.
just act like you are.
I think it's really a really important definition, a very important foundational thing, because you said it earlier. Biblically speaking, winning doesn't mean you never have any setbacks.
True.
I need to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Yeah.
We're going to go through things. I mean, Jesus himself, you're
Yeah.
going to have trials, you're going to have tribulations, be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. So even Jesus saying, in the end, we all win because of Jesus.
Because of him.
Because of
He's
him,
the ultimate
he's
winner.
the ultimate
Yeah.
victor, right? He conquered death,
Right.
hell, the grave.
Yes.
So no matter what we face,
Yes.
we ultimately win because of our great champion.
Yes. And we're attached to his team. We're just on the team.
We're on
He's
his
doing
team.
the winning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the head. But I think another thing is someone else doesn't have to lose in the kingdom, right? So
Right.
I grew up with two sisters, right? And this was back in the old days. We didn't. My kids now, it's like you can DoorDash any cereal, you can get all the good cereals, but we very seldom got good cereal. It was like the plain Cheerios.
Yeah.
But every now and then, Mom would be like, "Okay, y'all can get Lucky Charms or something."
So
Maybe
then it's a
something
race to the box.
It's a race to the box,
Yeah.
right? So Saturday morning, I wake up. My sister's been up since 4, eating all the good cereal, and it's like, And so I think a lot of people view life
Right.
to where if I don't get up first,
Yeah.
there's only so much cereal.
Zero sum.
Zero
Yep.
sum.
There's
There's
only-
a pie.
yep.
And if I don't hide 2 pieces,
Yep.
there won't be a piece
Makes
for me.
people anxious. It makes them stingy. Makes them have the scarcity mentality.
Yep. Yep. So someone else doesn't have to lose
really
in the
good.
kingdom for you to win.
It's a generous mindset.
It's an important
Yes,
thing.
that's
right?
really good.
But I think settling the reality that biblically it's okay, like 1 Corinthians 9:24, it's okay to have a stewardship mindset, have an eternal perspective that says, like, I want to do this in a way that what I do matters. And I think that's where, when you get to words like fulfillment
It's really good.
and significance, it's in that area of, does what I do matter?
It's really good.
And that's what I want to talk about in this, is like bringing meaning.
Yes.
I mean, you have the Simon Sinek's and these market disrupting
Yes.
concepts of people sacrifice for why.
Yes, that's true.
But it's like, I want us to have discussions that get us to like winning at what
Yes.
matters most.
Yes, it's really good. I know for you too. You're a guy you're not just into hype. You're not into just a bunch of leadership buzzwords. You like to get practical.
Right.
So I thought maybe help us with this thought, because I think sometimes somebody's watching this. Maybe they're a church planner. Maybe they're a student ministry worker. Maybe they're a kids
Yep.
ministry worker. They're thinking like, Pastor Jeff's talking about these big scopes, and we work with a lot of young people. We have a college, Milestone
Right.
College.
Right.
Talk to me for a minute about a young leader who's like, man, I want to win in life. And a lot of times they think what that means is I have to be great at everything. Help us understand, for a young leader, you started out, not a lot of people knew what you were doing, but you're like, I'm going to get good at a few things. And if I get good at a few things,
Yep.
then I'm going to have opportunities to go to other things. Talk to me about the basics of learning how to win, because winning is really a habit that you build over time.
Right.
It's not always celebrated. Like you said, a lot of times we learn more in adversity. How does a young leader know, okay, I'm getting good, I'm finding some aptitude, this is an area of my life where I could win?
Well, I think one of the things that's so challenging about our world today is there's an over celebrating, which we've already hit, right? You're amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in that household, right? So my dad actually would tell a story that I was my senior year athlete of the year, but I didn't start out that way. I was a little heavy kid with big Jack in the Box helmet, running around. I talk about getting hit by the ball, being scared, going to sit with my mom. But the thing about sports is, not that everybody has to play sports to be great, but I will say one thing about it is you see immediate results. You see quicker results to effort that you put in.
Right.
You can see quicker feedback.
Yes, you get it in real time.
A
yeah.
week of
Immediate.
good practice, you can find yourself having more endurance.
Yes,
right.
it's great.
So I developed as I was not the highest scorer in basketball. I was a rebounder. I was not. I started out as a tight end, but my coach moved me to right guard.
Yeah.
Not a lot of glory in being the right guard.
There are not a lot of guys with right guards selling a ton of jerseys,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, yeah.
But my point was, by the time I'm a senior, I'm impacting the culture. So I was, voted athlete of the year, and my dad was sitting in the stands, and this guy said, that boy is a good kid. You should brag on him. And my dad said back to him the philosophy I grew up under.
Yeah.
I'd rather listen to you.
Yeah.
So my point is that environment is challenging, but I think the second thing that follows that, so first is an over celebrating before anything to be rewarded has been done.
It's true. Well, you're 30 years into ministry before launching a podcast, right?
Exactly.
It's not like a guy. There's guys now who are like a year or two into ministry,
Right.
consultant, podcast. It's like, okay, let's do it for a little while. Let's learn
So
some reps.
this is all, this is also parenting, right?
Yeah.
You do want to affirm your kids, but if you over affirm before there's actual responsible results, that's
a great
called
point.
flattery.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't want to produce. So the next thing though that I think is so big, if I were to say a trait of a pastor, a manager, a parent, or any is assessment.
That's good.
And it's also plays into self-awareness, which
Right.
we know every leadership teaching out there right now in
It's
team
all about
is
it.
about
Yep.
self-awareness, EQ. So the hardest people to manage and help win are when there's a big disconnect between how they see themselves and how the rest of the team or the
Yeah.
coach sees them.
Yeah. They think they're quarterback, and really they're more like a right guard, like you said.
I mean, I coached my son's little league team, and again, is the parents are the problem, right? It's like, whoa, this lady showed up. Her son's got like her husband's white T-shirt over his pads, and she's like, "We're here," and he's playing quarterback, and I was like, "Well, you need to go find a different team." Then I got turned into the school board, and I'm a local pastor, so anyway, or
That's
the
a
football
problem.
board. So
Yeah.
anyway, whatever. But I think assessment is so big, like being able to honestly evaluate. Here's really where I'm at. And you were talking about young people. I'm going to something here. Over celebration, lack of honest assessment, right? Then leaves me in a place where what it produces actually in me is I don't have confidence I can do it.
Wow.
That's what it actually produces. The anxiety
Yes.
that we think kids have is not based on the lack of opportunity. It's not based on the lack of affirmation.
It's true.
It's not based on the lack of padding around their life to give them peace. It's based on they've been over-affirmed and under-stewarded, and they've also been given the opportunity to misassess themselves, and now I don't feel confident that I can do it. So the anxiety lies in, I don't know if I have what it takes.
Wow.
The way you learn to have what it takes is I'm running my race.
Yeah.
I'm not going to win your race.
No.
I'm running my race with my skill set. I'm not trying to outrun somebody else. I'm not, I'm running within my lane, and then that creates traction. So for me, where is this podcast 30 years later? I realize I'm an okay speaker. I can speak. I'm good. Whatever. I make people laugh. It's low revelation, high humor.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm like, okay. Well, I can inspire people a little bit, but I'm never going to probably be an industry leader in just like hyping people into a building.
Sure.
Right? So I'm not cool enough, definitely not good looking enough. I just wore a shacket for the first time last week.
It was powerful. Looked good.
First time ever.
Hey, I thought it was a good look.
My son made me wear it. He came into my dressing area. He goes, Dad, I'm not letting you chicken out. You got to put this on. But I still wore black because big men wear black.
It's
but
true.
anyway.
It was a win.
It was a win.
Yeah.
So I wore a shacket. So I'm definitely not the trendsetter.
Right.
But you don't care how cool your coach is or your
No,
pastor
you
is.
don't.
You just want him to be your pastor or
Right.
your dad. So but I did realize, I thought, you know what I can be great at? I can be great at coaching, developing, inspiring, encouraging. I don't know if I'm going to be a superstar, but I can sure be a super coach.
Yeah.
or a super pastor.
Right.
And that's what all of this that we're sharing in this
Right.
really comes out of that ethos.
It's really true.
Is just I just want to help you, inspire you, develop you, help you win at whatever it is you have in front of you. And sometimes I find that it's just sometimes a little bit of a mindset or a perspective shift that can be the game changer.
Last week when we were at that business convention, one of the things that you said I thought was so good was you win if you don't quit. And I
Yeah.
think in our world today, the consistency of a coach, the consistency of a dad, the consistency of a pastor who says the wind's going to blow,
Yep.
adversity's going to come, setbacks are all around us, things we didn't plan for, but I'll tell you this. I can't control a lot of things, but I can control whether or not I don't give up. I think the resiliency, the word people use now is grit, of somebody who's like, man, I can control very few things, but I get to control whether or not I quit and throw in the towel. I've watched you walk through a lot of things, and I've never thought, I wonder if Pastor Jeff's going to quit.
There was a couple of times where I almost did.
But
You're right. I mean, I'm
don't
hard-headed
project
enough that
Yeah.
I'm not going to. But
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, what's the power of a podcast? What's the power of having someone help you think about areas of your life that you need input in, that you don't know you need?
Right.
You don't know what you
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
And I think some of the relational infrastructure
Yeah.
that I've had around my life, and some of that is also played into that, not just sheer
Right.
personality
Yeah.
or willpower. But I mean, I think I would think as a young pastor walking through some challenging things, and I would think, like someone would tell me, hey, just don't quit.
Right.
And you'd be like, that's easy to say
it's
from
easy for
where
you to
you're
say,
at,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I think somebody listening could be like,
Right.
yeah, you're at this place in life, 50 years old, I got 2 kids married, one's in, I got a couple off the payroll.
Right.
Thank God. And, I'm moving further now. I'm further toward this end of the race.
You're
than
in a
I am.
different season,
I'm
yeah.
in a different season.
Yeah.
And I would think, I hear, you have a guy get up and he's got 15,000 people in his church and be like, Jesus is more than enough.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, well, let me get a few more people.
I knew you when you were 25. You're like, let me get a few before we start talking about that.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious,
Sure.
but I am saying it's much easier for someone in my position for you to kind of think, oh, it's going to be
Right.
fine. But I will tell you,
Yes.
if you keep your heart right, because this really, if I had to sum up winning,
Yeah.
stewardship.
It's really true.
Last night, this is fresh material.
Yes.
With because I have 2 grown kids. I got 2 grandkids. Absolutely amazing. Grandpa. We don't want to go down that too much, but
It'll
then
become the whole podcast.
It'll become
Yeah.
the whole podcast. But I will say, then I got one that's about halfway done with college, but I still have one 8th grade going to
Right.
9th.
Yes.
So last night was about going from 8th grade to 9th
Big
grade.
transition.
Big transition.
Yes.
I'm going away for a week with her for a camp, spending time with her, and I'm like, I'm going to help you through this. But if I'm sharing with everybody there, what did I say to my own kid? What do I say to myself when you're like, man, big transition, pressure, challenge. Do
This
I
is
have what it
hard,
takes?
yeah.
I went in the kitchen, got a piece of paper, got a black magic marker, and I wrote number 1. I wrote at the top, steward. Number 1, steward your heart. The Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the
It's really
issues
good.
of life. It isn't just me quitting practically. It's me quitting emotionally. It's
true.
Because there's a lot of people still going through the motions.
They go through the
quit
motions.
emotionally.
They call it quiet
right?
quitting. Yeah.
Quiet quitting. So it's steward your heart, right? Steward what you've been given, right? Steward your homework, steward your grades, steward the class that you're in, steward what you have, steward the responsibilities, right? In the garden, they were given this garden, take care of it, make it fruitful. Right? Steward your own health, your own emotions. You can't control the other girl who's insecure,
It's true.
who's being critical or rude.
Yep.
Steward your own health physically, emotionally. I would say that what's one of my top deals for you winning in this podcast, your emotional, spiritual, practical health as a person is the single greatest contributing factor
Yes.
to growth in whatever it
So
is you're
true.
doing. It's all the bad news is it's you.
Yeah.
The good news is you know where the problem, as John Maxwell
yes,
says.
it's true.
Right? So it was, steward your health, and then, the final thing was steward your relationships, because a lot of times I think we're going to hit this a lot in this. Winning equals a lot of times something more relational than it does functional.
It's really true.
Because a lot of times the way God resources us is through another person.
Right.
And so if I can win with people, which is my most recent book, there's so much supply through that.
So good.
Now, I'm not doing that to get from them.
You're not manipulating
but when
them,
you're rich relationally, it brings a wealth of things into your life.
So true. It's really good. And I think, as we finish up this first episode, this is a great way for us. This thought that you were just on, whether you're a pastor, a business leader, a high school student, a middle school student, wherever you're at, it all comes down to winning, comes down to stewarding. One day we're going to stand before Jesus, and he's going to say, what did you do with what I gave you? And it's not going to matter what anybody else did.
Yes.
It's going to be, what did you do? Because like you said, we're the only ones who can answer that bell, who can respond to that challenge.
Yep.
And I love a podcast like this because you want to be around, winning is contagious, so is
Yes.
losing. You
Yes,
want to be
it
around
is.
people who are excited. And our hope for this podcast,
Yep.
every time, whether it's a guest or whether it's the two of us, that you would be encouraged, that you would have a new inspiration, that you would have like, man, I can do it. I don't have to quit. God has more for me. The future is brighter than the past is dark. My best days are ahead of me. I can win in the areas that matter most. I know that's your heart, and that's what we want this to be.
Anything can happen, just
Yeah.
like this. It's like last night I had those 4 points for my kid, and you may have an 8th grader that's going into 9th grade, and you want to save that little nugget. So it could be anything from parenting wisdom
good.
to coaching to practical team to guests who are going to impart to us, and we're learning as we're listening
Together.
to them.
Yeah.
And so I just believe that we can build an environment here that gives us like that dose to keep on going. And I do want to say to somebody, it will ultimately, if you just keep taking steps, right? Winning, as you said, is about me stewarding and doing a responsible, it involves my heart,
Yes.
a focused effort toward what I've been given stewardship over, and the rest takes care of itself. And it's going. You may not think you're making progress, but you are.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to the other side if you don't quit.
So good.
Scripture is about sowing, right? If you don't grow weary in that sowing and that well-doing, the Bible says if you don't faint, if you don't quit,
Right.
you'll reap.
You always will reap.
You always reap.
You'll do it. Well, I want to thank you so much, Pastor Jeff. It's great being with you here for this first episode. I want to thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us next time on the Lead to Win podcast.